you said that the traditional notion of talent is dead, referencing the scientific literature and the scientific consensus. However, it seems to be alive and well in culture and in the collective unconscious. And I'd like to have your opinion on why do you think that is, and why is it? Because I've had this conversation with many of my friends and family, and it's crazy to see how much people seem to be attached to this idea of inner talent, like the Mozart myth.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. It is something where, I mean, because this is often an idea I lead with when I'm teaching, because it is so foundational, and everything else about my approach and my process and methods and everything else stem from this. I feel like you kind of have to go with that first. But it then also gives me an opportunity to see the sort of inherent pushback and the like, whoa, wait a minute. And people are still, very frequently kind of taken out of their comfort zones by this idea. My answer to this, I mean, so there's some of this that is tackled in the literature. Some of it is sort of speculative. I think here, I'm going to pause for another 20 seconds and just pull up some of the relevant quotes. This is in, I think a lot of these are in Peak, but some of them are in Talent is Overrated also. Yeah. So, for example, page 207 in Peak, Erickson writes, "It's one of the most enduring and deep-seated of all beliefs about human nature that natural talent plays a major role in determining an ability. But studies of experts point to a quite different explanation, with deliberate practice playing the starring role." And, the question is essentially, why? Like, why is it that this is such a deep-seated idea that goes back, I mean, millennia, right? And I think there are a variety of different ways to answer this. I think to a certain extent, and I mean, when I talk about the sort of like millennia old thing, you can see in like the earliest epics, the writings, the Iliad and the Odyssey, all of these like classic archetypal myth stories have at their center some sort of hero who is endowed with unnatural abilities and who has a destiny to go do things heroic. And you can be talking about, Achilles. You can be talking about Hercules. You can be talking about Siegfried. You can be talking about Anakin Skywalker, right? I mean, this is all the same stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's the hero with 1,000 faces. The book by Joseph Campbell.
Exactly. It's exactly right. It's the same basic story. It is so deeply set in our sort of societal understanding in all of our stories. I mean, so in a way, like the most proximate answer is it's no surprise that people think this, because this is the story they've been told since they've been early enough to know what stories are, right? These are the stories we tell ourselves. And whether it's, again, it could be Luke Skywalker, it could be one of the X-Men. It's like, you have a specialness and you were born with this and you're destined for greatness, right?
Yeah.
I think, though, that there is this dark side of that a lot of people kind of don't really think about when they're absorbing these initial stories, because in a way, it stems from the feeling that everybody wants to feel special, right? Everybody is the hero of their own story. And so if you can feel like you're talented too, well, now you're even more the starring actor or actress in your own story, and you are destined for greatness. And, I think the other part of it is it sort of serves as this assurance against the terror management problem, right? Which is like, oh, wow, if I didn't have this talent, if I weren't strong with the force, this whole project would be really scary. But since I know I'm talented, since my midichlorian count is high enough, I know this is all going to work out and it's going to be fine. And so it's sort of it's like a little psychological palliative trick, I think, where people are like, well, I'm desperate to be told I'm talented. And so as long as I'm told that, I'm going to believe that. And that way I can allay the fears that maybe I'm not, or maybe talent isn't even a thing. And maybe like the world is actually fundamentally chaotic and difficult to predict. And you can't know exactly how this is going to turn out. And, because confronting the reality of this is not easy, right? You have to do deep assessments of your values and what you want to be doing and all of this. I think the other side of it, I mean, so there's how that entire framework of thinking can be attractive to people who believe they're talented or who have, done enough work to develop skills and then have some manifestation of what people would call talent, right? I think the other side of that is that it excuses the people who aren't, which is to say, it gives a total pass. It's an out for people who are not manifesting those skills or who are not achieving things or whatever. It's a very easy way to say, well, hey, you didn't really like score so high on that last math test. It's like, yeah, well, I'm like not talented in math. It's just not my thing. Or, man, you really like sucked out there on the soccer field today. Well, I'm just like, I don't have a lot of talent in soccer, right? It's a very easy excuse. And I think, as people like Erickson have written about, all of this can become incredibly self-fulfilling, right? And one of the most prominent examples of that is actually in Canadian hockey, where you see this in sports all around the world, but where, in Canada, a huge number of the professional hockey players have birthdays between January 1st and middle March. And you look at this and on paper, you're like, wait, what's going on here? Like, are people born in those months just like genetically stronger and faster or something? And it's like, no, obviously not. What happens is that the cutoff for like youth hockey league is December 31st. And so if you're born January 1st, you will be the oldest kid on your team. And so the coaches who are coaching, who still likely believe in this old paradigm of talent, they look at all these kids showing up on the ice, and like some of them are skating better than others and some of them are skating faster than others. And they assume those are the ones that are talented. And so they're like, well, I'm going to give them more like extra training and coaching, and I'm going to put them on the starting team and do all of this. And from this very early age, you get this like bifurcating path system where the kids perceived to have talent get a different route in front of them. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, when in fact, it's just a pure quirk of the arbitrary deadline set off to join the league. And the only reason that matters is because, when you're like 4 or 5, the difference in 8 or 9 months of growth can make a huge difference in your size, your weight, your speed, your dexterity, all of these other things. And that's not natural talent. That's just how kids grow, and it's random. And, you could design a system totally differently and come up with different results. And, so there's all of these different ways that this talent myth sort of permeates culture. And, we see this from Star Wars and the Iliad and everything else. But then there's also, I think, this almost deeper layer, which is maybe like, why do those myths exist in the first place? And this is now much more just me being speculative and sort of subjectively riffing. But, I think a lot of it can have to do with almost different, like, political crosscurrents we're seeing in the world right now, in the way technology and social media have enabled these to emerge more strongly. I think there's this very interesting drive toward sort of class inequality that reemerges throughout history in every society all the time. And it could be the French Enlightenment, it could be, medieval agrarianism, or it could be, income inequality in the United States in the 21st century. But nevertheless, you have kind of people at the top who are sucking up all of the resources, and then you have like the great masses of those underneath supporting them. And for the people on top, you want to feel like you deserve it, right? Like you need to not feel guilty about that. And so for a long time, it the papacy would give it a sort of religious twist. It's like, well, no, these people have been chosen by God. Or the monarchy would say, well, no, these are the people whose bloodline is, the best to rule the country. And, and more recently, we've gotten the ideas of like, well, no, it's the meritocracy. Like we want to be governed by those who have proven themselves, but they've proven themselves because they're the most talented. And I think in a way, like the deep-seated nature of this almost relates back to then this basic, human fear of death. Like when you have these generational dynasties, like you want to believe that you are going to be sort of immortal through your your family, your kids, your dynasty, they have received your genetic gifts and your talents, and they will go on and continue it going, and the name will live, and therefore that's how you confront mortality, right? It's this sort of like generational talent-based immortality. It's a lot tougher to reconcile, like, oh, it also might be like totally random. and my kids might end up doing totally different things than I do. They might all go into nonprofit work and barely scrape by their entire lives. And 2 or 3 generations from now, they'll be doing things entirely different, right? And so I don't know. I think there are a lot of deep-seated psychological factors that explain how the talent myth, has like Erickson said, has been one of the most basic understandings of human nature for thousands of years, and is also just provably wrong.
Well, that's a very, very interesting way of seeing it. And actually, while you were talking, I was also thinking that some things that might tend to confirm your thesis might be the idea of predestination in Protestantism or the idea of karma in Hinduism have both been successfully used to enforce this kind of social control where people are, there is a social order and people are where they are because it's been preordained and that's the way it should be. So it's a very, to cite Carol Dweck, that would be the opposite of the growth mindset, right?
Absolutely. Well, and to your point, though, I think it is a very interesting idea that, and I can't say this from experience or anything, but I would be very interested to know if the notion of talent like this is as deeply seated in Eastern cultures as in Western cultures, because you're absolutely right. So much of religious doctrine for again, millennia in the West has had these various different ideas of predestination involved in it. Whereas, Buddhist ideas are much more process oriented, much less, God has a plan for you. And even the notion of karma itself is a much more sort of deliberate practice idea. Like you gotta do the work to get karma. Like it's all about the process. You do the work, and if you engage in it, then then good things will come to you after that. But you're not born with karma, right? And so I think your question it points to some basic fundamental differences in how humans have structured their societies and how we think about philosophy and just everything else.